heading into the government, you named the cost of living crisis as the number one priority. Obviously, inflation is now back down at 2.2%. A year ago, it was at 5.6%. Why should we thank the government for that, as opposed to the Reserve Bank?
No, I want to be really clear. The last Labor government was a disaster economically. They were economically illiterate and frankly.
I just really want to ask him. I don't think he's ever going to talk to us, right? But I really want to ask him. So when we went through that period, and New Zealand came up in, like, say, let's just say top 10 in the world for economic response to COVID and how we came out of it. How does that, where do you think they should have come? Like, should they have come first in the world and then they wouldn't have been an economic disaster? If they came out sort of top 10 or even top 20, where should they have come for you to think they weren't an economic disaster? Because obviously, we all know that one of the reasons inflation went up is, I'll use their verbiage, that, Labor printed money. And the reason they printed money was to keep people alive, allow sick people to stay at home, and to save businesses. So what part, and which means we paid a bit more of a tail at the other end for inflation, when other countries who just went and killed all their people and didn't give a shit about the businesses came out of it more quickly. I'm still okay with that payoff. More alive New Zealanders, more saved businesses, and a slightly longer tail. I'm okay with that payoff. He's not. So what would he have wanted to see done? How would he have not described them as economic vandals? And we did this with, I always get the Woods mixed up, the Dunedin national guy. Michael Wood? No? Which Wood was Dunedin? Michael Wood.
No, it wasn't one.
There's like three of them. Anyway, when he was on, we were talking about inflation. Woodhouse, that's it. When he was on and we were talking about inflation, and it was like at about 5.4% at the time during COVID. And I said, what number would it need to be for you, Michael Woodhouse, to not think it's a terrible deal? And he was like, 5, 4.5. And I'm like, well, so that's what they're talking about, So you got to press into them and say, okay, you think this is bad. How does it need to look for you think it to be good? How did they need to come out of COVID, Mr. Luxon, for you to think that it wasn't an economic disaster? And to be fair, he'd have no answer. I know he'd have no answer because we know this is rhetoric.
Economic vandals. They forgot the lessons of economics, and there are immutable laws on economics. And I talked to the media when I became the leader of the National Party. I remember standing up there and saying to you guys, hey, listen, there's amber lights on the dashboard here, adjust, 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 so we don't have to deal with the consequences of inflation back in an economy. And the reality is this: when you have fiscal policy where a government increased spending by 84%, that drove up inflation, it drove up 12 interest rate rises. That then put the economy into risk.
It saved businesses, it kept people alive, it allowed sick people to stay home from work and not infect other people. Doesn't mention those ones, does he?
What was the context of that spending?
Exactly. It's such a good question to ask in any interview, Why did they do that? Why did they spend that more money, Mr. Luxon? What was the reason for it?
Were they bailing out airlines?
Very good.
Leads to people laying off jobs, and the job layoffs are the last things that happen because businesses hang in there with high costs around inflation, high costs around interest rates, recession, suppressed demand, and then ultimately they're forced into a very difficult place of laying people off. And we've seen some of that actually in the last 3 to 4 months. That is the lag effect of the mismanagement. And if you
so did you get that? The lag effect of the mismanagement means we can ride this blame Labor bus for a good while yet, because the lag effect of mismanagement will be with us for a while. Shall we? You want to jump in there for anything?
This is just an anecdotal story, so give it all the weight that it deserves because of that. But as we were going into lockdown, when they said this pandemic was bad, I interacted with a business owner who had come into the shop to buy something before he went bush, and he had laid off 25 workers. Just at the drop of a hat. Don't know where this is going. Cut everyone loose. Now I'm going up into the hills to hunt deer or something like that. Didn't even seem like he gave a shit. Now that's what businesses would have done fucking near wholesale. Because if you can draw your payroll down to zero, awesome. But the government threw out a lifeline. It paid them to pay their workers. So mortgages got paid, rents got paid, supermarkets could still make money, because the alternative to that is the government wholesale having to feed everyone.
Yeah.
So that's why that was done. So when Luxon talks about this government being economic vandals and refusing to acknowledge the context in which that increased spending exists, having to pay everybody's mortgage, everybody's rent, everybody's payroll, everybody's food bills, and scale up the health system to a level that we've never seen before. That's the context that exists. This man doesn't acknowledge it because he's a buffoon. He is an intellectual toddler. And all he can say is the worst things about the previous government and ignore the fact that what he's doing to our economy, going upstream against all the expert advice from Treasury, from some of our biggest banks, from some of our richest people that actually still have a conscience, they're all idiots. We don't believe in economists. We're just going to wing it. And it's not working. It isn't working for the majority of New Zealanders, the New Zealanders that you said you would be, the leader of the government for all New Zealanders, whether you voted for National or not. You're a bullshit liar and a vandal.
And if you ever want to check that out, I was looking for this. Spinoff did a really good thing of, and this, I'm not going to go through all of it, it's too long, but
love a graph.
A report card, 8 charts showed how New Zealand managed the pandemic. And we're talking about the economy. So, we can go cases per million. We're not really worried so much about that, and death and excess mortality, which we did very well in, vaccination rate, which we did very well in, stay home orders did well in. Okay, here's inflation. So the red one's New Zealand, right? So New Zealand's 7.3. It's not good. It's not a nice thing to sound, but compared to there's the OECD, 9.71, USA, 8.6, Ireland, 7.95, United Kingdom, 7.9. So, better or comparable to most. Unemployment rate. USA got up to 13.
Comparing ourselves to Ireland, don't we?
USA got up to 13%. Look at New Zealand. Oh, because we saved all those businesses and saved all those jobs. And yes,
the curve.
I'll say again, yes, we had a bit of a longer tail, but the reason we had a longer tail is because we spent money looking after people and looking after businesses. Quarterly GDP, we didn't drop off the map so much. Came back, did well. New Zealand's the red line there. Back to about everyone else. Australia 0.89, New Zealand 1.71. That'll be double. OECD 0.4. So when he says it, but there needs to be a context here of what does that mean? You say that they handled it so badly. I've seen these graphs. They must all be lies, Mr. Luxon, but they say in that time we didn't do too bad. Explain that to me, and there'll be no response. There'll be no response other than perhaps CEO talk and mention of KPIs and targets and that kind of stuff.
He keeps getting to say this unchallenged.
Yep. Well, I guess in fairness, let's see if he gets challenged. Shall we? Okay.
Let's see.
If you care about working people, you are a fiscal conservative because the pain and suffering that comes on the back of that.
Did you hear that?
We've seen with this Labor experiment for the last, some of that actually.
If you care about working people, you are a conservative.
The last 3 to 4 months, that is the lag effect of the mismanagement. And if you care about working people, you are a fiscal conservative because the pain and suffering that comes on the back of that.
I think what he means is if you care about the CEOs who under them have working people. I think that's what he means. I think he's got mixed up.
Is what we've seen with this Labor experiment for the last 6 years. So they took the keys to the car and they drove it full bore into a big ditch, and we're now hauling it out of the ditch and getting it turned up the right way and getting into first and second gear. So you have to have fiscal policy and financial discipline matching with monetary policy, not one where the foot's on the accelerator on fiscal policy, spraying money around as it was under Robertson and Ardern and Hipkins, and then equally the Reserve Bank trying to take interest rates up.
Isn't it just interesting as well that he's having a conversation around his first year and he spent half to 2/3 of this answer talking about Labor? So he has this election mentality, electioneering mentality, where he can go them bad, them bad, them bad, but it hasn't gone away. We want to know about what you've done. This is what the report is doing. It's your first year. What have you achieved? And what he's talking about is he's using all those same talking points that he used pre-election. This is feeling a bit 2000 and late to me, Mr. Luxon.
Causing that instability. And you need, as the Reserve Bank Governor says, good mates fiscally, and that's what we've done.